I know, and I know you know as well, that a lot of people, upon hearing the assertion that culture is evolving, that morality is evolving, a lot of people will say, well, more people died in the 20th century, than in any previous century, and aren't we more violent? And look at, Ultimate Fighting Championships is now the biggest new sport, and, everybody loves watching people beat each other up. And, are we really evolving? Aren't we worse off, than a kind of simpler, more peaceful time that existed in the past? And I'm just wondering if you can maybe comment on that idea a little bit to help illuminate this evolutionary arc that you're laying out.
Ironically, the recognition of the pathologies that have come with the development of modernism and the developed world in general is actually evidence of the evolution of consciousness. What we recognize with this evolutionary pattern, this dialectic, is that there is a dialectic of progress and pathology, right? The word progress is sort of a dirty word nowadays because it's so clearly associated with modernism, and modernism, from a postmodern perspective, is so, that is, because postmodernism, which we're using as a defined term, that's not just an art movement or critical academia. In the integral worldview, we're coming to have an agreement around the term postmodern to describe the stage of culture and consciousness which comes after modernism, right? Modernism is pretty well defined. People know what we're talking about. It began in the Enlightenment. It's the majority of people in terms of the worldview. It's sort of scientific and rational. But there's something that comes after that. And although it's a loose amalgamation of different values and different perspectives, one of the things that coheres this cultural stage, one of the things that makes it an authentic stage, is that it has a relationship to modernism that is in antithesis, right? So one of the things that postmodernism does to evolve is it rejects the pathologies of modernism. It rejects environmental degradation. It rejects the values of accumulating status and material. It rejects sort of the non-spiritual orientation that's so common in modernist culture, and tries to reclaim spirituality at a level that's not doesn't constitute a regression to the pre-modern traditional stage, although it takes elements from that and tries to bring them forward. It's not merely a backward move; it's a forward move because it's going beyond modernism. So. The pathologies of modernism are one of the main animating life conditions that create the need to go beyond it, right? In other words, that's what produced so much of the cultural movement that began in the 60s and has been maturing for the last 40 years, is that we realize that we've gone as far as we can go in terms of the evolution of consciousness and culture and values with modernism, and that there's got to be a better way, right? Just like modernism began with the rallying cry of liberty, equality, fraternity, right, as a way of going beyond feudalism and the traditional worldview, the rejection of all things modern could be seen in a similar kind of slogan with turn on, tune in, drop out, right? It was a new set of values, and those values were something that have become kind of woven into the fabric of postmodern spirituality for good and for bad. So yes, the first thing we have to do is say that whenever you have progress, you also have pathology that goes with it. Every step of progress brings pathology, and an analogy, if we think about this dialectic trajectory of evolution, I like to think of it as like a sailboat tacking against the wind. In other words, a sailboat can't sail straight into the wind. It has to sail at an oblique angle, and then it can only go so far in one direction before it has to sort of change course and sail at the other angle towards the wind. And that's kind of the way the evolution of consciousness and culture proceeds, because the way forward is defined by what's wrong. Right, and so as you try to move away from what's wrong, you sometimes, or maybe I should say inevitably, you go too far in the other direction, which then requires a correction that moves back in the previous direction, but hopefully not a regression. But you're continuing to move forward like the sailboat, but you're now sailing in the previous direction, only at a higher level.